And it's just my attempt right here of providing some clarity on some situations that I see people consistently facing. We all facing. And a basic understanding of words could help us. Like humanitarian law. What is international humanitarian law? It says here, international humanitarian law is a set of rules which seek for humanitarian reasons to limit the effects of armed conflict. So humanitarians do not seek to cease armed conflict, do not seek to prevent armed conflict. It's not poverty prevention services. In no means. It is simply seeking to limit the effects of armed conflict. It protects people who are not or are no longer participating in hostilities and restricts the means and methods of warfare. It restricts the means and methods of warfare. I'm starting to believe that all of commerce is some form of warfare, and I'll get into that later. International humanitarian law is also known as the law of war or the law of armed conflict. So when we think about humanitarians, we typically think in people who are here to help the world, save the world. Nevertheless, humanitarians are just one part of the war machine. It's the part that limits the effects of the wars. So it's like you create some damage, but you want to limit the effects. You still want to receive what they call it, they bounty and they booty, which is they rewards for war. Individuals who in war want to still receive their rewards, yet they want to decrease the effects that the war has, and that's the role of humanitarians. All right. Now, international humanitarian law is part of international law states, right? Which is a body of rules governing relations between states. And that's important because we talk about a state. A state is any group, okay? Any group or any social compact that has their own set of rules to manage and organize themselves. And they also have some territory that defines they domicile, their residence here on Earth or anywhere. It doesn't even specify Earth. International law is contained in agreements between states. So international law is just agreements between states, agreements between groups of people who choose to live a certain way, and they got a certain place that they identify as home or they land, right? So these are treaties and conventions. So treaties and conventions is just deals, contracts between states, sovereign groups of people. And customary rules is any group of rules that a group of people choose to adopt or have adopted historically. It's any rules, any group of rules, any set of rules can become your customary rules. You can accept them, and by you documenting it that they're your customary rules, they can truly be the rules that govern you, depending upon, according to your jurisdiction, right? The group of people that you're rocking with, which consists of state practice considered by them as legally binding and in general principles. So essentially, treaties and conventions are considered binding and, also principles by which these states choose to operate with. Now, international humanitarian law applies to armed conflict. It applies to armed conflict. Okay, so when you think about any armed conflict, it's not just the wars that you may see on TV, or if you're a military person, you go to war. It's also, say, your police lock people up. They use force sometimes, right? And that's a part of the military industrial complex. So when you say military industrial, it's the pieces of business, pieces of commerce that are truly military. They are just branches of the military handling commerce for the benefit of the military strategy, and that's military industrial complex. I'm truly perceiving that there is a military and industrial complex like in every industry right now, and that's just what it is. And it does not regulate whether a state may actually use force. This international humanitarian law doesn't regulate whether they can use force. Okay, that's governed by a distinct part of international law set out in the United Nations Charter. So the law that these countries, and this is based upon the United Nations laws, all right, y'all? A lot of United Nations countries is the countries that a lot of us are living in. Now, in other words, these are some words that I perceive people need to grasp. Nation. What is a nation? It's any group of people that have a social compact. That's some rules and regulations that determines how they gonna operate. Authority is very interesting because in this world we're following a lot of authorities. People are following authorities, but then it's like, who is the authority? You got famous people were considered authority figures, and you got a lot of stuff going on in Hollywood and music where even famous people is getting knocked off when it comes to doing some bullshit illegally and all this shit going on with sex and drugs, and you know how it go. Now, that authority figure was placed there socially, but authority is, look at the root word, author. Authority can be documented. Who's the author of the authority? What document created the fact that they are the authority? And at the end and the beginning of the day, do you have a higher power, even while you living in this world, that you perceive is your authority? And if that is so, then documenting that and living according to those laws is an actual separate and foreign jurisdiction. Then all of these law, then all these countries and states and tribes, you can, the jurisdiction of your Most High is a real jurisdiction if you perceive in the Most High, or God, or Allah, or Buddha, or whomever you perceive, or Orishas and Obatala, whomever, Oladumare, whoever you may look up to as the highest power, the highest source. If they have some rules and regulations then that you follow, then they are your authority figure, and you could document that, and that could be your judge, juror, and executioner according to your laws, your customary laws, ecclesiastical laws, or you can just make them your nation laws or your tribal laws if you so chose to. All right, courts. So in every systems. In every system, you got some courts. And what is courts? Courts is literally the governing body who's capable of making decisions that affect the day-to-day life of people. Like, how we going to make decisions to address issues, right? So you got groups of people that come together that have been bestowed authority, or they have defined that authority and accepted the responsibility, and that's what got them the authority to form courts in certain jurisdictions. Okay, all over the world you got courts. You got Supreme Courts, international courts, and you notice you got different systems, different court systems, right? And these systems sometimes are at odds with each other and things of that nature. Nevertheless, whomever your authority figure is, more than likely has a court system. All right, and if you perceive you are the guide or the leader of your life, and you don't have a court system or any documented authority or any rules and regulations, then operating in international law is going to be difficult, because international law is the law of nations. It's how sovereign groups of people operate amongst each other. And if you ain't got no way to operate in accordance with international law and respect the sovereignty or the right for other beings to operate how they choose to operate, other groups of people, then you're going to have a hard time in this life and the next lifetime. Nevertheless, we got a couple more words that's important. Laws. Why is the word law important? Because a lot of people perceive that law are the rules, the regulations that's enforced by, third-party companies that has been given licensed authority from figures that have adopted authority or have defined their own authority, the authors of their own authority. So you might think the principles and policies is your laws, and then you got statutes that's laws, codes that's laws. You got different groups of people and different entities come together to create rules and regulations for how they're going to operate, and that's the law. And the law typically relates to them, the parties that's involved with that contract. Now, if you're not involved with that contract, more than likely those laws don't apply to you. Nevertheless, if you start acting like those laws apply to you, more than likely you are a subject or subservient, servant, or some lower class in some system that has created that laws. Okay, now money is anything we choose to use as an exchange of value. Anything we choose to use to exchange value. Historically, it's been seashells. Now people utilizing paper and digital messages and things of this nature. Nevertheless, your money source, you typically want your money source to be a fungible, bountiful, extremely available resource. Why? Because if your money source is something that's not extremely available, then it prevents productivity. The purpose of money is to stimulate productivity, to stimulate trading, exchanging for products and services. And why does these products and services need to be exchanged? In order for groups of people, nations and states, to live in the way that they deem that they are here to live, right? To create the environments and the societies and the systems that they perceive as necessary for their well-being. You have productivity. That productivity, in order to be managed and distributed in an organized way according to tasks, okay, in order to handle things when you got groups of people, the productivity is managed and assigned by assigned tasks and incentivized with money. And money is used to measure the amount of value or output of energy or energy received during a transaction or a productive activity that's occurring in society, right? Now, I had to break that down like that because money is not just a promissory note, even though a promissory note is money. Money is not a United States dollar, even though United States dollar is a form of money. Money literally is anything we choose to use to exchange value. And historically, there have been a lot of things that we have chose to exchange value. We chose to use bills of exchange, promissory notes, seashells, and a whole bunch of other things. Why is this stuff important? This is important because there are standards organizations. Standards organizations are organizations that organize and manage rules and regulations so that groups of people and individuals could operate in a cohesive manner, right? So, in order to increase interoperability amongst different systems, or basically in order to make sure people can handle business together or do things together and interact amongst each other, people with different types of systems, they create standards. They started creating standards. And these are standardized ways by which we could go about handling certain things, certain pieces of business, certain laws, how we could document certain documents. So you have the standardization from these different agencies who, in theory, are here to assist in the cohesiveness of operations amongst different states, different jurisdictions, and different people and parties, right? Now, at the end of the day, these standard bodies have become, to humanity, what authority figures seem to be. So the way that they have standardized situations seem to be the law. When that's not the law, that's just their method of going about certain situations, or their prescribed method of going about certain situations in accordance with law. So if that's their prescribed way or prescribed method of going at a situation in accordance with law, that's just one way. Or if there's 10 of them, there's just 10 ways. Does not mean there's not an 11th way possible, or 12th, 13th, 14th, or a million possible different ways to handle that situation lawfully in accordance with law, but not, exactly how they standards stated. And or you could utilize their standards with not being a member of their societies or their guilds. Yeah, that's the situation we facing in so many words, whether essentially, you got groups of people, groups of organizations that are standardized bodies that set rules and regulations for how certain things can happen. And they set those rules in order to increase efficiency. Nevertheless, they rules and regulations that were created in order to help people and organizations abide by the law in a way that's easily duplicatable and easily interacted with. They have become what seems to be the gatekeepers of commerce, of some of the most important aspects of transactions. Transactions such as money transactions, transactions such as traveling transactions, food, water, health, housing, clothing, how you protect yourself, the guns, the way you can eat, live in your personal life, in the public. All of these things have been, let's just say, governed unofficially by standard bodies that are not technically the authority of the universe. Let's just say that, right? So in order for you to live in a different way, or in order for you to go about things in a different way that's not 100% in alignment with the standardized bodies of these days, you have to have other individuals, other people that choose to do that with you. You know, you have to have your group or a group of individuals or beings or companies that say, okay, even though they say their standards of operation is this, we wish to operate like this, right? So for instance, right now, to pay for something, for instance, you know, you have to have specific type of dollars that they choose, that they say you have to have, or you have to utilize a specific system that they say you have to utilize. But what if you're following all the laws, even their laws, even the international? When I say their laws, I mean the laws, not the standards. You're following the international laws. You're following your law, and you have created a unique system that is not their standard. You know, it's not you're not a member of their standard, and these entities, because they have so many vendors or organizations and retail members, if your system is not their system, you may be you may have a less amount of activities you can engage in if they choose not to do business with you, or respect your way of going about living life, or respect your form of money. If they choose to not respect your form of money, if they choose to not respect your court, if they choose to not respect your authority, if they choose to not respect your laws, if they choose to not respect your standards, what do you do then? And that's where I personally am. I don't know about y'all. I know a lot of people, and it took me a long time to even get here. A lot of experiments, a lot of experiences, a lot of attempted to do a lot of things, successes and failures. Most things did not occur as I wished for them to. Yet the lessons are here, and the lesson is screaming loud and clear. What do you do when they don't respect your value? When they don't respect your exercise of your freedom? You first off, you will never find out if you don't exercise your freedom. You got the right of nationality, the right to determine your own nationality, no matter where you at, no matter what country they say you in. You got the right to claim any nationality. You got the right to establish and operate any type of organization that any other group of people have created. I'm just going to say that. Any type of organization, any type of operation that any other group of people have created, you got the right to do it. You have the freedom to do it. Now, if you do not exercise that freedom, you may or may not know if they respect your value or not, or respect your choice. Nevertheless, once you choose to start to exercise your freedom of nationality and say, hey, I see there's a lot of nationalities out there, but you know, I'm choosing this one, and you choose to go with you can create a nationality. You choose to roll with a nationality you create. Yes, you can create a nationality, like you can create a nation. If there's one now, it was once created, right? There was once a time when none of it was here. None of the words you call nations or countries was here. So if somebody created one, you can create one. And then the laws do not say you can't start a nation. You don't have the right to create a nationality. Okay? You don't have authority. You can't create authority. You can't accept responsibility and receive divine cosmic authority, or accept responsibility and even receive earthly authority. There's no law to say you can't accept the responsibility to establish a course because your group of persons or group of people need one to handle the things that they uniquely handle in accordance to the laws that they uniquely have. There's no set of laws that say you can't establish your own money system. And there's no set of laws that say your money cannot be accepted, should not and cannot be accepted by another country. You understand? There's no law to say your money cannot be accepted and should not be accepted. Especially if you follow all the laws. So it's time to express these freedoms, experience these freedoms, and identify, so we can really find out who with us or who against us. Who with you or who against you. You might never know if you just following their standards. If you just going with their system, going with their flow, following who they say the authority figures are, you might never know if they with you or against you. They may be smiling just because you rocking with their system the way that they see fit. But what when you set your system up, or you join a system with people who set up a system for themselves, and now you want to go ahead and get some interoperability with their system. You want to make sure that your money could be accepted in their system and their money could be accepted in your system. You want to make sure that your laws could be accepted in their government, and their laws could be accepted in your government, or their rulings. Your rulings could be accepted in their government, and their rules could be accepted in yours. Yes, there are ways to go about this lawfully. Now, will they allow it? I don't give a fuck no more. It ain't even about will they allow it. Will you go for it? Will you go for it? Paperwork is just one part of the thing. Paperwork, boom. Now, actualizing is a whole nother reality. So, ask yourself this question. Was the nation created and developed for you? Are the authority figures listening and participating with you? Do the court systems have your best interests? Are the laws 100%, not 50%, 100% acceptable by you? And are the laws 100% accessible to you? The benefit of the laws 100% available to you? Is the source of money 100% available to you? Do you have access to issue and clear and settle the money source that you so much appreciate and you so much look up to and you so much work for? Do you have the access to issue, clear, settle that money? Does your people have the access to issue, clear, and settle that money?